Let's turn now to Capitol Hill for more now on this story. With us now is House Republican Policy Committee Chairman Tom Price, Republican from Georgia. Chairman Price was asked to serve on the conference committee to negotiate and resolve the differences over the payroll tax cuts. Congressman Price, welcome back to the Kudlow Report. Before we begin, I want to read you, thank you, sir. I want to read you two quick lines from an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal today. GOP leaders have somehow managed the remarkable feat of being blamed for opposing a one-year extension of a tax holiday they are surely going to pass, and it continues. Republicans have achieved the small miracle of letting Mr. Obama position himself as an election year tax cutter. This is from the Wall Street Journal, Congressman Price.
Yeah, well, there's some inaccuracies there, and that is that we are supportive of the one-year tax reduction, the payroll tax reduction for the tax holiday. The Democrats actually are for a 2-month reduction. That's the difference between $1,000 in tax reduction that we support and $167 in tax reduction that the Democrats support.
Yes, but 2 months is better than nothing if we don't get the 1 year.
You're absolutely right, and that's why we believe that Senator Reid ought to follow just the normal process here in Washington. The House has passed a bill. The Senate has passed a bill. There's a difference of opinion. And what's supposed to happen is that a conference committee is supposed to come together. That's why we're here. We're here in Washington. They're not. We call on Senator Reid to appoint the conferees so we can get this worked out on behalf of the American people before the end of the year.
Where does that stand? Will we have a conference committee?
Well, we sure hope so. We've got the Republican conferees, the negotiators here in Washington ready to go, and they're not in Washington. So, we call on Senator Reid to appoint his conferees, and let's get to work. These differences can be worked out, there's no doubt about it, but they can't be worked out when the Democrats have left town.
But, Congressman, this is the standoff. We do not have the Democrat side. We may not have the Democrat side. We have a game of chicken right now with about $1,000 per average American working household. You and the Democrats are playing chicken with $1,000 of American families' money.
Brian, with all due respect, it's $1,000 that we're pushing. Yes, that's correct, of a tax reduction. And it's $167 that the Democrats want, a 2-month fix. And it's more egregious than that, actually, because they want to pay for that 2-month, $167 tax reduction with 10 years of increased fees on homeowners. That's just the kind of policy that the American people are sick and tired of.
But we have to pay for it somehow.
Well, sure we do.
How do you propose paying for it? Just through cuts, which we know the Democrats largely oppose. The art of negotiation, Congressman, as you know better than I do, is somebody gives a little, the other side gives a little, and you come together.
You're right, but you can't negotiate with somebody who won't come to the table, which is why we believe that a conference committee is the place to sort these out. Yes, we had spending reductions that paid for our bill last week, and we believe that's the best way to do it. But the only way to work this out is if they come to the table. We're here in Washington, and they're not.
Congressman Price, please stay with us because we're going to bring in CNBC contributor Jared Bernstein, former chief economist to Vice President Joe Biden, as well as Steve Moore of the Wall Street Journal editorial board, author of Return to Prosperity, and author of the op-ed that I just quoted to Congressman Price. So, Steve, I will give you the first chance to jump in here. You were pretty tough on the Republican Party. How come?
Well, look, I think my friend Tom Price has the policy right. Tom, you're exactly right in terms of everything you said. I think the politics of this got pretty botched up, though. I mean, you had a vote last week, Brian, where all but 7 Senate Republicans voted for this package. It's a little bit late in the game for Republicans to shift the field. And what I would say to my friend Tom Price is, look, I believe you guys probably should have just declared victory here, Tom. You got you won on the issue of the millionaire surtax, which, remember, the president wanted as a pay-for this, and you very heroically got that taken out of the package. And also, Tom, you won last week on the key issue of the pipeline, basically forcing the president into a position he didn't want. And I think you Republicans were right about that. I just don't understand at this late segment of the game to basically sort of call an audible at the line of scrimmage when you had first down and 1 yard to go.
Yeah, Steve, if I may, I think you're right. The policy is correct, and the politics may not be working right now. But we tend to believe that if you do the right policy, the politics will follow. Now, in this case, we certainly need to make certain that the American people know that we're here in town. They're not. We believe it ought to be $1,000. They believe it ought to be $167. We believe it ought to be paid for with spending reductions. They believe it ought to be paid for with fee increases. That's kind of where we are right now.
Well, you know what's interesting, Brian, about this?
let Jared Bernstein get in here. Jared, everybody's piling on Congressman Price, so I'm going to take the other side. Jared, why won't Senate Democrats appoint the committee? Why won't the Democrats come to the table? Congressman Price is saying they're ready to talk, but he can't talk to himself.
Brian, it's nice of you to take the other side, but there's just so much misinformation swirling around here that I don't even know which side is the other side. First of all, it's interesting to hear Steve Moore, who wrote a very incisive op-ed today, say that the congressman has the right policy when the Wall Street Journal has consistently opposed this payroll tax break. So that's part one. Part two, of course, the Democrats and the president have been for a one-year extension. They were fought tooth and nail all the way. They hammered out a compromise for 2 months. Once Congress comes back after the break, I'm sure that 2 months can be turned into a year, and that's the way this has to come down. You had 39 Republicans because you had 30. Because I'll explain. I'll answer your question. Okay. Because you had 39 senators led by Mitch McConnell, who had an agreement with Speaker Boehner on a compromise, and everyone agreed. Close the deal, and you guys can leave town tonight.
No. But
Jared, it's a bicameral legislature.
Here's the point.
It's a bicameral legislature.
This is the
House and the Senate.
Not only that, but here's the point. The Republicans in the House passed the bill that the president originally wanted, which was a one-year extension. Why? All the president has to do is call back the Senate, say, iron out this difference, let's do this for a year, and we all go away happy.
Gentlemen,
that bill was filled with poison pills.
Let's dial it back just a bit. I want to get back to Congressman Price, right, because he's a part of these negotiations, hopefully. You know, Congressman, listen, do you fear there is a view from the American people? I mean, if you got Steve Moore writing about this, there's others out there that are thinking the same things, that people may respect the House Republicans and some of the Tea Partiers for sticking to their guns, but there has to be a give and take. Do you fear that this is going to do damage to the GOP's image?
Look, we know there has to be a negotiating process. That's why we want the conference committee. We know that the final bill likely won't include everything that we want, but it won't include everything that the other side wants either. But that's why you got to get together and discuss this and come up with a conference committee report that then goes back to each chamber and then on to the president. That's the normal process here. It's been tried and true, done in this country for over 200 years. That's what we ought to be doing.
Let me make a quick point. Look, I think the American people who are looking at this do not see any of the nuances that we've brought up so far. What they see is a dysfunctional process standing between them and a much-needed boost to their paychecks. Right now, the House Republicans are clearly being blamed for that. I happen to think that's accurate. But what really matters right now is getting this money back into the American people's paycheck.
Without a doubt.
Now,
but Brian,
we all agree. I think we all agree on that.
The party of tax reductions is indeed the Republicans, and we will demonstrate that clearly.
The final word.
Look, the party of tax reductions is indeed the Republicans, and we will demonstrate that with all of our action. We're on the side of the taxpayer. We want a $1,000 tax reduction. The other folks want $167. We want to pay for that with spending reductions elsewhere in the government. Right. The other side wants to grow the government.
And the president wants to use this as a political issue. Yes. Right at this point, Jared, he doesn't even want to get the tax cut done. He just wants to bash the Republicans for not passing the bill in the Senate.
I'll tell you what, Steve, won't the American public, if their paychecks go down by 2% January 1st, won't they bash the Republicans? Won't that hurt Republican election possibilities in 2012? Steve first. Where's my top hat?
That's why we need to work now.
Steve, you first.
That's why we need to work now. We're here, and the Democrats aren't.
Yeah, the American people will blame the obstructionists, and that's the Tea Party in the House.
I think that's the president on this one right now, because he could call these guys back and they could get it done.
I'm going to wrap. I want to wrap. We got to wrap the interview. I want to wrap the show. I just used all my energy for 13 minutes in. Jared Bernstein, Steve Moore, and Congressman Tom Price.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas.
I'd have a Merry Christmas anyway.